Hello, comic watchers. Welcome to an interesting special we've got going on. This is the death and rebirth of Comic Watch, part one. Here we go. It's a bit dramatic, it's a bit tragic, but there's a story to tell, I think, and
There
it's one that's
is.
interesting and one that's worth telling so
Yep.
that not just our audience knows, but our fans and kind of everybody knows what's going on, what we're going through here at Comic Watch, why the site's been down, and what we've been doing in the meantime. Uh, we have our usual host here, Matt, with me. Thanks for joining.
Happy to
And
be here, Nick. And of course, Nick is my co host on the Comic Watchers Show podcast, which you should all be listening to and hyping relentlessly. But this is not my show because Nick is actually the CEO of Comic and owner of Comic Watch. So this is kind of his show. And I'm just here for sparkling wit and personality. And so Nick, let's talk about what got us here. What is up with the death of Comic Watch?
yes, the death of Comic Watch is what you'll see right now if you go to comic-watch.com. It's in maintenance mode. There is no website right now, and it's kind of our lifeblood. We have a lot of different social media accounts tied into this, and it's a big team that's a part of Comic Watch. And
Absolutely. A
you know,
team,
we're
a team I want to add that is 100% volunteers. None of us are getting paid to do this. We're all doing this for love of comics.
yeah, absolutely. It's a very grassroots, full of volunteers, like some of the most passionate and knowledgeable people about comics and all things fandom that I've ever known, and always keeping me on my toes to step my game up. But I wanted before we get into what happened with the website and what's going on, we need to start at the beginning, really. And I feel like that is the origins of Comic Watch. It's a story that has floated around in our own like private chat channels at Slack, and before that, it was like Facebook Workplace, and
Mm-hmm,
we all
mm-hmm.
kind of understood what's going on. And I am not the original creator of Comic Watch. Only stepped into the role of editor in chief slash owner slash kind of whatever you want to call it, um, just over a year ago. I'm coming up on 2 years now, and it goes back to about November or so of 2017
Yep.
when we really get things going and where people start to see what Comic Watch is. The year of 2017 is when a lot of the development happened with who I like to refer to as the old guard. We have a lot of love for a lot of people who have been with Comic Watch, and it's a group of volunteers. People come and people go, and there's been a lot of people who have stayed for quite a few years, like myself and John and Cody and Ross and yourself, Matt. There's so many, but not everybody who created Comic Watch is here. So it started basically in social media chat rooms or social media groups, different threads. Everybody was really involved in X-Men fandom. That's pretty deeply tied to Comic Watch's origins. And the group there who kind of helped create the idea and foundation of Comic Watch, um, none of them are with us anymore. The creation of Comic Watch is a group of fans who built this foundation and this awesome network, really, and way of operating to provide all these reviews and commentary and this platform for fandom that was built on just fans on social media who were typing those long ass comments on different threads, like with all these deep explanations, and they're like, we should just do this as a comics journalism site because we're doing deeper insight than almost everything you see anywhere around. I gotta have a lot of love for Comic Watch and our past and our history of articles, and that's kind of what led to Comic Watch. I didn't come in until a year or less than a year, as a few months into the birth of Comic Watch, and I started as a review or a press writer and was just doing press releases and writing random reviews whenever something would become available. And
Right.
that's kind of how we operated. I think, Matt, you came to it not
Yeah,
far after.
I was actually first approached by one of the site's founders,
Yeah.
Tyler, to start writing in springtime of 2018. So almost 3 years ago now, amazingly enough.
Wow.
And yeah, at the time I was just finishing my bachelor's degree and was at the time thought I was going to start my master's program, so I declined. And so fast forward a few months, and I just realized I was burned out on school, needed a break. I thought to myself, dang, this opportunity is still out there. It's an open invitation to just hang out and write about comics all day. And so I reached back out and was put in touch with Cody and submitted my test review, so to speak. And then, a few months after that, or a few weeks after that, my first article was published, or review was published. It was for Rise of the Black Panther #1 by Brian Hill. Yeah. And since then, I've just been, a couple months after that, I was invited to join the Comic Watcher Show podcast, and that became part of it too. And one of the best things about Comic Watch is like Nick was saying, the organic grassroots feel to it. We're constantly networking and reaching out to new people and trying new things, and it's not unlike working at a nonprofit and where there's a much more loose structure, and you have the freedom to fail and to try new things. And if something's not working, cool, let's just try the next thing, instead of it being tied to a rigid structure. And that, and if I'm wrong here, Nick, just say so. But I really and truly believe that approach, that DIY grassroots approach that we have, is why the industry is so favorably responding to Comic Watch. So we've grown immensely in 4 years of existence, and we're just going to keep getting bigger. But the problem is we got a little too big for our old server. And Nick, I'll let you kind of go from there.
That's kind of what it is. It's growing pains, and we're growing really quickly. But a lot of people who are part of Comic Watch has a story like ours, where they're just fans and they're engaging with people online, and the opportunity arises where you want to put your voice behind Comic Watch and be a part of something bigger, and help put your voice into fandom for both a positive and an inclusive reasons. And I think us being straight passion driven, and we're volunteer, and we put in the time and the work, that's made us to be who we are today. Our audience has grown massively since I helped step into the role of VIC, and that's what got us to eventually the death of Comic Watch, because we have grown so much, and you have to invest in your own growth because it's worth it, because of what Comic Watch is doing. And I firmly believe that it's worth every single penny, every hour that is injected into the brand, into the organization from so many different people. It's all just a lot of love. And what we're doing at Comic Watch requires an investment in ourselves. And part of that comes from a lot of development stuff, because we're primarily digital. We have our own website. We're on almost all the social media platforms, and that's kind of how we operate. But the website needs room to grow. That's how we work. And that's where all of our work goes into. That's where all of us spend our time, and we're all making sure that the content and what we're doing at Comic Watch is important. So that brings us into this moment where
suddenly we don't have a site because of server migration issues.
Yeah, like the lifeblood of what drives Comic Watch every single day, from posting schedules every morning to everybody making sure everything's covered right, news articles are done, all that grinds to a stop because we don't have a place to put our work. And that feels like a death in the family. And that's where we're headed, because we're all just kind of suspended here waiting, because the migration did not go as planned. And we've had to put in a lot of overtime, a lot of our editors, and get everything back up and running the way it needs to be so that we can sustain this growth. It's important, and it's right there, and it's an opportunity that none of us want to miss. So bear with us a little while longer. We've got a couple more parts into this little series that we're calling The Death and Rebirth of Comic Watch.
If you
And
smelled trilogy, you nailed it.
that's right. That's right. It's a trilogy, and there's a lot of story to tell. And this is just kind of who we are and how we got started and what brought us here. But there's a little bit more to go. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We wouldn't be here without y'all.
Definitely. Thank y'all all so much. And over the next few days, we'll be continuing these videos, and you'll find out a little bit more about us, where we're headed. And this is not the end. It's only a very bright beginning. So we'll be back.